Welcome to Duck Season Somewhere podcast. This episode is brought to you by the following sponsors. For 365 days a year, it's duck season somewhere at Ramsey Russell's GetDucks.com. The world of duck hunting is way bigger than our backyard. The very best duck hunts in Argentina and Mexico are only the beginning. We specialize exclusively in 6 continents worth of proven waterfowl hunting adventures. Whether you're looking for a unicorn species or a fun trigger pulling vacation of epic proportion, we've got the right hunt dialed in. Real duck hunts and authentic experiences for serious duck hunters. As a genuine American duck hunter myself, I know the difference. Founded in 2003, GetDucks.com is not just what we do, it's all we do. I've been there personally many times. Our reputation speaks for itself. Anita and I are personally available to assist before, during, and after your trip because you deserve nothing less. Looking for something closer to home? The next great hunt is closer than you think. Contact proven operators throughout the U.S. and Canada at our U.S. hunt list. Explore worldwide duck hunting at GetDucks.com. All package details, photos, videos, stories, and thousands of client testimonials right there at your fingertips. GetDucks.com. Ball Shot Shell's copper-plated bismuth tin alloy is the good old days again. Steel shots come a long way in the past 30 years, but will never, ever be like good old-fashioned lead. No way. Say goodbye to all the gimmicky, high recoil, compensation, science, and marketing hype, and hello to superior performance. Know your pattern, take ethical shots, make clean kills. That is the boss way. The good old days are now. It really is duck season somewhere for 365 days per year. Duck season somewhere takes me year-round to worldwide destinations where I visit with the most interesting people. I'm your host, Ramsey Russell. Join me here to listen to those conversations. Ramsey Russell, Get Ducks. It's duck season somewhere. I am at Safari Club International. It's probably morning 3, but all the mornings run together. You know, just a cloud of people coming in. Who the heck knows what day it is? I just know when the alarm clock goes off, it's time to be here. It's about an hour and a half before the show starts. I'm in the booth today with Trent Dirks, a veteran from Operation Enduring Freedom, age 30. Been duck hunting for 4 years. And his friend Scott Dewey, who owns a company called Retrieving Freedom. And I hate to even call them a company. I like to think of them as an ideal, as a well-founded, well-purposed company. Anyway, we're at Safari Club International. I've got these 2 guys in the blind. And, y'all have heard me say it a million times. I love to duck hunt. I love everything about being in the blind and be with my friends and the different ducks coming in and the whole process. But you hear me say it time and time and time again. The one thing I've walked away with after 20 years is the people I meet, hunting the people I meet at shows all day, every day, 365 days a year without end. I talk to duck hunters. I get to meet duck hunters and I get to hear their story. And I really felt strong about sharing this morning's story with my guest. When Trent came into the booth the other day, he had this beautiful yellow lab named Tracer. Tracer's got a vest on, very obedient. When Trent comes into the booth, Tracer sits down, just lays down at his feet, watches his every move. When he gets up, he goes. He's a service dog. And I think this morning's conversation, y'all will really enjoy hearing at a couple of different aspects. And so listen up, guys. Trent.
Yes, sir.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good. Where are you from, Iowa?
Iowa, Central Iowa. Yep.
That's why y'all talk funny up there.
Yes, sir.
That just, for a guy like me with my accent, Andy Griffith made over. I have fun making fun of guys with good Midwest accents. But tell me this, Trent, you're 30 years old. You've been duck hunting for 4 years.
Yes, sir.
How do you like it?
I love it. It is, almost my number one passion anymore in life.
Duck hunting will do that to you, won't it?
Yeah, it's pretty addicting.
What do you what about duck hunting hooked you into it?
Watching my dog, number one, and working with my dog and seeing his enjoyment and my enjoyment and working together and the camaraderie of duck hunting too, and going out and being able to do it with your friends and being able to talk and joke and laugh, and it's not all serious. You don't have to do it by yourself.
It's a very social sport.
Yeah.
Going deer hunting bores me to death. Even if I've got a cell phone signal where I can play on Google, I'm bored shitless because I don't have buddies to talk to in between the volleys, and cut up. And I don't know. I guess I'm just not a solo hunter like that. I like to, although I do like a duck hunt by myself sometimes. I like to do that. Y'all shoot a lot of mallards out there in Iowa.
We shoot a fair amount of mallards, a lot of teal, and we see a lot of shovelers. Some gray ducks move through too. Shoot some gadwalls and pintails.
You were telling me the other day about hunting those fields and those Iowa cornfields for mallards and Canada geese. That'd be a reason for me to move to Iowa. Just the opportunity to shoot a bunch of mallards anymore.
Yeah. I can't say that we get them like North Dakota or South Dakota does, but we get our fair share of mallards, and if you find them and you watch them and you put the work in, you can find them in the field. It's a lot of fun.
Well, traveling around the world, I often have to hunt without a dog, and a retriever really adds so much to it. When I say by myself, I don't mean by myself without a dog. I mean me and my dog. Right. My partner in crime, right? And it's always just amazed me how willing and able. No matter what, that dog's ready to go. Don't matter what the weather's doing. It doesn't matter how cold it is. The light comes on, the gun comes out, the dog's ready to go. Tail wagging, ready to go.
He knows the night before. If we're going to bed and we've got the stuff ready, he's ready. That alarm goes off and he's up before I am. And
exactly.
He says, Dad, let's go.
Exactly. And and in terms of the friendship that dogs bring, I'm always reminded of one of my favorite little memes or something on the internet I saw. Is like this lady laid in back of the trunk scowling at her husband. She says, "You want no difference in a wife and a dog, lock them both in the trunk, open it up 4 hours later and see which one's glad to see you."
Yes.
But anyway, a lot of us got into hunting with our family when we were younger. I started dove hunting when I was 8. I've got a lot of buddies. My own children started hunting ducks and whatnot when they were very young. They grew into it. And I like to see older people like yourself in their 20s and 30s that got into duck hunting. I think that we duck hunters need some hunters, but your story is such that you got into duck hunting because you got a Labrador Retriever.
Yes, sir.
And what led up to that? Tell me. I know now we're getting to the meat of the story, but tell me how this process came about. How did you end up with Tracer?
So I deployed in 2010, 2011 to Afghanistan, and when I got back, I really started to struggle for several years. And I struggled by myself. And in 2015, I lost my second friend to suicide in a year and a half.
And he was deployed with you?
He was deployed with me. Both of them were. And it hit me really hard. I was in a really dark place. I was losing my family. I didn't have anything really. I felt like everything was knocking me down. Nothing was going right. And every step forward I took, there was 3 steps back. Something was just running into a brick wall. And
what happened? What happened over there to do something? What causes PTSD?
Oh, a lot of things.
Without getting too specific, what must you have experienced?
We're in a lot of conflict over there. At first, we didn't see a lot of IEDs. We saw a lot of more rockets and mortars coming on the base. And as the deployment went on, saw more and more IEDs, improvised explosive devices and roadside bombs and stuff like that. We lost one guy out of our battalion in our area of operations. It was a friend of mine. And then when I was home on leave, four of my guys got hit by an IED. And when I was at home, I just felt entirely alone. I didn't have.
You heard the news while you were at home on
when I
vacation.
was at home, I found out. And I remember that night vividly getting that phone call saying, "Hey, your brother got blown up." by an IED, and that's about all I knew. I knew there was 3 other guys in the truck, and I didn't know what happened to them. I didn't know if they were alive. I didn't know for several days what happened. And I just remember sitting at home, and I had a newborn at home. He was about 9 months old at that time, and then my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and I think I remember telling them, like, some guys got injured, but that was it. I went outside on my back deck, and I remember...
You were in shock.
I was in shock. I just started drinking that night, and I smoked a whole bunch of cigarettes, and I just sat by myself crying.
Would you have been on that truck? Had you been stationed? Have you been on site? Would you have been on that truck?
That was normally the truck I rode in. Was the one that got hit, and
they hit an IED.
IED, a very big one. I can't remember the size of it, but it entirely destroyed the truck.
Trent, was that kind of deal to where, and I don't know, but it was the kind of deal to where they would have been driving along and somebody remotely discharged that. They were watching.
It was a command wire IED.
Okay.
From reports that I got from the guys, it was a command wire IED, and it went through a clot, which is like a building, an exterior brick wall, and inside the wall, then there's kind of like a yard area, which is, in Afghanistan, it's just dirt. But and then there's like their home inside of that, and that command wire had gone through that clot wall and was inside that, and they hit him from there.
When you're in living and stationed in that kind of war zone, that environment, what is it like on a 24-hour period? I mean, I'm imagining if there's mortars and things like that hitting base, I'm imagining I go to bed with my boots on.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean,
you're in battle gear.
Yeah. I mean, you've got it laid out, ready to go at any point in time, and sometimes it was, 6 o'clock in the morning, you might wake up to mortars and rockets, and hey, it's time to put your stuff on and get outside. It's go time. Sometimes it'd be noon or dinner time, and then sometimes it'd be 11 o'clock at night. It just, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You just never knew when it was going to pop off.
And what specifically was y'all's purpose there? To patrol, to engage?
Basically, patrol and to win the hearts and minds.
Yeah, I see.
Of the local populace,
Right.
I mean, we would go into communities and into villages and talk to the village elders and see, what kind of needs they needed, protection. Did they need a school? Did they need lumber? Did they, what were their struggles? What did they need help with? How could we help them? And just trying to, win over the hearts and minds and see what we could do over there.
Right. How long were you stationed over there?
I was over there I was in country for about 10 months.
Wow. Seemed like 10 years, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it wasn't bad when I was there. When I was there, it was easy. I had a job. I had a purpose. I woke up every day and I knew, what I was going to wear, where I was going to eat, and what I was going to do.
Right.
The unexpected, obviously, is whether or not you were going to be engaged that day or what was going to happen. But you knew how you were going to react to it if it did.
Right. And so it was after 10 months you were home? Were you on some like a leave? When did your friends get hit with the IED?
You get a 2-week leave on your deployment, and I was home on my 2-week leave when my buddies got blown up.
Okay.
And they were in my platoon. And so
just one of your platoon members called you up and texted you or something to let you know?
It was a family member of one of them.
Wow. The military had notified them that they were in bad shape.
Yeah.
I've got a son serving, and I just can't imagine the phone call. I got choked up just thinking about that phone call. I can't imagine. I can't imagine getting a phone call about my friends or my family.
It was a rough phone call. I didn't know what to do or where to turn to. I didn't have anybody to lean on at that point in time. I wanted to be surrounded with the guys that I was deployed with that were going through that, and I wanted to be there for them and have them be there for me, and I couldn't. You know, I was in the States, which,
Right.
you know, most people think that's where, you know, safe place where you should be, where you should want to be. But at that point in time, I would have given anything to be at Cop Kalagoosh in Afghanistan.
Absolutely. So you went back after you got that news, after your furlough ended, you went back, you finished your deployment.
Yes, sir.
And what was coming home like?
It was tough. I just, you know, I had a newborn child, and, you know, I think the first week, maybe 2 weeks was, you know, that's kind of the honeymoon period, or it was for me. Everything's hunky-dory. It was all fine.
It's kind of getting new and familiar again. There's enough kind of distraction and the outside stimulus to keep you out of your head.
But I remember it didn't take too terribly long to figure out that something wasn't right. I remember having a homecoming party, and pretty much after most everybody had left, there was one guy there, and I didn't know who it was. And this is at my house in the backyard. And I was just kind of hanging out with two of my buddies, and then there was this guy there, and he was eating the leftovers off the table. And something snapped that night. And I mean, we got into it bad. And it was, I mean, all downhill from there. And I don't know what it was, but I flipped that table over on him, and that was it.
Something just snapped.
Yeah.
What were some of the other post-traumatic stress disorder manifestations that you experienced in the next period of time?
There are so many things that happen. I mean, I remember one time my computer, something as simple as my computer, I was going through music on my computer, deleting songs that I didn't want and all this. And my girlfriend and my son were sitting next to me on the couch. And, you know, he's about a year old. Well, music starts playing. And he was taking a nap. And then he kind of wakes up. And I'm sitting here just trying to push pause. And that music wouldn't stop. And she said something like, turn it off, you know, he's waking up. And I was like, I'm trying. And it wouldn't turn off. And I just smashed that computer down on my lap and just broke it. All my pictures and videos off deployment, gone. And I don't know why.
Almost like a short temper, but it really wasn't. It was just something emotional. You know, and you know, we're talking about post-traumatic stress disorder in your experience. So I'm certainly not trying to horn in, but, you know, PTSD is not a result of just wartime service. I mean, it's trauma. It's trauma. It's severe emotional trauma. And I don't think we had PTSD back when I went through my mess that a lot of people heard about. You know, it took later for me to realize that I had suffered greatly from it also. I mean, as recently as 2 years ago, and I don't know why they finally ceased, but I would wake up in night terrors. I'd wake up screaming in fear for my life. I can remember swinging my arms one time and hitting my wife as she slept. I can remember waking up the children across the house. Mm-hmm. Don't know what it was. And we did a short film down in Argentina on this place, Rio Salado, and my partner down there had some trauma in his life. As a police officer, had been involved in a shootout, had shot and killed someone, had been shot himself. And he had told me the story without much emotion years ago. So as I brought Jake down to do this film, I wanted to kind of create this story about how his retreat from that led him to this really wild marsh. And maybe my retreat from my past kind of led me down this path that also brought me to that marsh, and our paths crossed. And as I was talking to him with a translator about Jake coming to film, I was looking at my feet while I was talking, because I was thinking very carefully what I was trying to explain to him. And somebody on the table kicked me in the shins and said, and pointed to look up, and I looked up, and he was sobbing. I mean, the man's face fell apart, and he was crying. And he said, "Ramsey, you're over it. You're over what you went through, and I'm not."
And I just, in that moment, I realized that PTSD is like this. Here's what I think PTSD is. It's like your emotions are like an egg, and you dropped it on the floor and it cracked. Now, you can pick it back up and glue that eggshell back together, but it's never a solid eggshell anymore. And we all suffer with it. So, like, for example, Trent, I've noticed you've been by the booth a few times the last couple of days, and every time I've shaken your hand's still sweat. Your hands are sweaty. And it's hot in this hall sometimes, but I know that you're still coping with some emotional PTSD trauma based on, the loss of your friends, the injury of your friends, and the great service you did for our country. And I appreciate your sharing some of the stuff that went on. What you're at that point, and I've been there where you snap like a temper, break a computer, do this, probably yell at your wife or throw something across the room. What other thing?
I really struggled going out in the public, and that didn't take me long to figure out either. I just felt if I would go anywhere, grocery store, clothing store, gas station, I would feel really claustrophobic or on edge. Like
like a bomb fixing to drop?
Like a bomb fixing to drop. And I just felt really, really uncomfortable. I didn't like to be around people. I thought everyone was I don't know if I felt like they were gonna hurt me, say something, come up behind me. I did not feel comfortable in any environment.
How was your relationship with your wife at the time? Was she your rock, or was it tenuous because of the emotions going on?
I think it was tenuous because of the emotions going on. And, she was walking on eggshells and didn't know how to deal with me coming home and some of the things that I was going through, and she didn't understand at the time what I was going through.
But a good wife is there for you. I know mine have been through some hard times. They're there for you, so I suspected that. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What led up to a certain point that led you to Tracer? I mean, how long a period of time are we talking since?
I got home in 2011, and in 2015 is when I applied. So I was home for about 5 years. I struggled by myself, going out in the public, having panic attacks, anxiety attacks. I mean, I could be somewhere and then all of a sudden something would just snap and I'd either blow up or I'd just take off running and escape.
You didn't know what it was, just demons inside you.
Yeah. I remember shortly before I applied or found out about Retrieving Freedom, I was at a college football game, an Iowa Hawkeye college football game, and I felt really, really uncomfortable being there. There's tons, thousands of people there. And I remember, making it into the stadium and finding my seat, and I didn't even make it through the first quarter of that game. I felt so uncomfortable. I had gotten up and I was going to go use the restroom. And there was a woman there that she wouldn't stand up to let me go past her. And so I'm trying to squeeze by her, and she winds up pushing me in the back. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I said, "Excuse me, I'm trying to get out." And I used the restroom. I got back, and I was just shaking. And I sat down with my wife, or I think my wife at the time. My wife. We'd gotten married by then. And I'm just shaking. I said, "I can't be here. I'm about to just lose my mind." And I got up and I power walked out of the stadium. As soon as I hit that front gate, it was a full dead-on sprint back to the truck. And I remember having to stop at a Porta-John about halfway back, the first one I found, and I just sat in there for probably 15 minutes just bawling. And I didn't know why. And that was just a few short weeks. And then I found out my buddy killed himself And
so years later, we're talking 2015,
Yeah.
when you found out one of your buddies that had served with you had committed
second
suicide.
one in a year and a half. And I lost it. I knew if I didn't do something at that time that I was gonna end up dead.
He was going through the same problems you were.
Yeah. And
Did he live nearby?
No, well, he lived about an hour and a half away.
Okay.
So
at that point, when he committed suicide, you realized I'm headed down the same path. These demons are going to consume me if I don't do something.
yes, sir.
And what did you do? Did you go to the VA?
I had been in the VA system. I
that
tried
worked a
some
flip, is it?
therapy, and I was on different medications and stuff like that, and just really, it wasn't doing what it needed to do. I needed something different. I needed to try something different. And I had heard about this organization called Retrieving Freedom, and that they trained service dogs. And I was a farrier at the time. I was shoeing horses, and some of my clients were actually fostering one of these service dogs in training. And I had asked them a few questions, and I had driven by this new building they put up by Waverly, Iowa, and I didn't know at that time that I needed a service dog, but I thought maybe I could just get involved and be around other people or something. I don't know, something drew me into that building that day. And so the day after my buddy killed himself, I think I was working that day, but I was kind of working in the area, and I had a little bit of time in between stops, and I stopped in there, and Scott was sitting behind his desk, and I remember walking in that door, and Scott says, "Hey, how are you doing?" And I couldn't even respond to him. I just shrugged my shoulders, and he asked if I was a veteran, and I nodded my head yes, and he picked up on it immediately and asked our unit director, who was our program director at the time, Keegan, to give me a tour of the facility while he finished up an email, and that he would talk to me as soon as I got done with this tour.
Scott, do you remember that day that he walked into your shop?
I remember it like it was yesterday. Absolutely.
How would you describe Trent walking in that day?
It was an emotional day. It was an emotional day because Trent's exactly right. When he stepped in the door, you could tell he was there for a reason.
You'd seen it before.
Yes, I mean, I got to say I've had the honor to work with a ton of veterans that have walked in similar to Trent that day. Some have called, some have emailed. Trent was close, he walked in. And Trent's exactly right. He didn't know why he was there. He didn't know what we could do for him, but he knew he needed to do something. Mm-hmm. And I can still remember him sitting down across the desk and not saying anything. Like you, he was kind of looking at the floor. He was like, "I don't know why I'm here." And I said, "Well, let's find out. Did you serve?" "Yep." "Is there anything you want to talk about serving?" "Nope." "What do you want to talk about?" And he kind of went into just this. He said, the first thing he said is, "My buddy committed suicide and I need help." And Trent.
And you've seen that before too?
I've seen it a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yes. And the great part about it, Ramsey, is the results have all been across the board pretty similar to, I think, how we'll finish this conversation up today.
But at the time, you were running or operating retrieving freedom.
Yeah, so I'll back up.
That ain't how you got started in all this. Now, guys, listen, I'm just going to take a little break right here to explain to you. This is not just a cozy conversation. I've almost teared up talking about my son's service and getting a phone call. Trent over here is wiping tears at times. This is a real serious deal. Of course, Tracer's just sitting there laying down doing his job. Happy to be here, but go ahead, Scott. I
appreciate that.
I just wanted to provide a little context to the listener about what we're doing right now and what's going on at the table.
So, and I'll back up to the start of this whole conversation. Retrieving Freedom isn't owned. Retrieving Freedom is a nonprofit. So I founded started it in the very beginning, and I was a professional dog trainer for field trial dogs. So
labs.
Yeah, mostly labs. And we competed with them across the country. And well before Trent came in the door, we had started on our own time, training a couple of dogs and seeing if we could help out some veterans. It was just kind of on the side. It was our own personal time. It led to retrieving
What
freedom.
led you to that? Because, are you a veteran yourself?
No, I'm not. Actually, I sat across the table with a recruiter clear back in high school, and when I said I had asthma, he said,
You're out.
See you later.
Yeah.
Went to Iowa State, ended up going to work for a dog trainer in the late 90s, and I've been dog training ever since. So there was another individual, a good friend of mine from the Mid-South. We got to talking about the benefits that dogs could provide individuals, and you said it earlier. I mean, their unconditional love, their ability to be with you 24 hours a day, to not judge you, and to, Trent can account for that. Be there for what you need them for. That's the intuitive ability of a dog. But
It's unbelievable.
But then when you add tasks to that, like nightmare interruption and things like that, that just makes them that much better. So to even more precisely answer your question, my little brother had done multiple tours as well.
Okay.
And this was kind of in the early stages of service dogs for veterans with disabilities. And I don't think anybody had a really good handle on what can we train the dogs to do? How can they benefit? And I didn't know. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, I was an expert. I went to some places that were doing it and said, what are you guys doing? Can I do this? So we just started training some dogs, seeing what the reactions were. And the first individual that I worked with all the way through, from starting a dog, getting that dog to him, seeing how that dog reacted with him, was 1,000,000 times the feeling of ever winning a field trial or an open event with a dog.
I bet.
It was so real. It was so real to watch their eyes light up, to watch that hope come back, to go from this sustaining every day to, Trent's a perfect example of somebody going from day to day to day to thriving. I mean, he's here.
Right.
And he told you a minute ago he didn't like to be in crowds. For him to walk through the STI convention with thousands of people, we can't make it 10 feet without somebody saying, hey, can I pet your dog?
Oh, yeah, I bet, yeah.
And every time his eyes light up, and he's like, he's working, but I'll tell you about him. And I just can't, it almost can't explain it till you see it. And you saw it when we walked by.
I did see it, yeah. I've seen it. I've seen it just in the last couple of days as Trent has come by and we visited about this subject. Okay, so I understand how to train a duck dog, and I don't train duck dogs. I don't have the, I'm way too easy on a dog. You can train a match or title dog, and I'm going to ruin him. He's just going to be a meat dog when I get done with him. That's the way I get along with dogs. But I don't. Tell me, everybody listening understands what a senior master title and AKC and UKC, all that good stuff is. But tell me, let's talk about the process. What you were brand new to, and you had to explore. I mean, what do you train? What is Tracer? What is he trained to do? What is he trained to do? What does he do?
That's a great question. And to answer the first part of that, you take the prey drive of a dog and teach him to bring back a bird. That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
That's what they want to do,
That's
right?
what they want to do.
You take a dog and say, I want you to turn on a light switch. They look at you like, what good is this?
Right.
How does this help me? When we built our first facility in Waverly, Iowa, we put in 4 living quarters. It's got bedrooms, handicap accessible bathrooms, places for these guys to stay, a home for them, away from home. And the other thing we did is we put infrared cameras in those rooms. Because every single veteran that walked in the door, when they started telling me what they were having troubles with, it was night terrors.
Night terrors.
Yes.
And that would be just like an unidentified nightmare and you wake up screaming or just terrified.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, how can these dogs begin to help the night terrors? Well, I have no idea how to do that unless I know what Trent's doing when he's sleeping. So he can sleep in one of our rooms. We videotaped the whole night's sleep. Trent gets up the next day, comes into my office, and we sit down and we watch this camera. And he's like, man, I think I woke up like 4 times. This happened. And I said, well, let's watch it. So what we start doing is we figure out what they do. Do they start swinging fists, like you said? Do they sit up in a cold sweat? Do they roll over and not get back to sleep?
I wondered as I was thinking about this, doing this podcast, I wondered if at the onset of that dream or that terror, I was wondering if you put off like a fear pheromone or something that a dog could sense.
So we don't go that in depth, and that's possible. I mean, you can start comparing that to like diabetics. They do.
I know you train dogs for autistic children too.
Yep, and in a diabetic, you can actually tell their blood sugar in their saliva. And a dog can sense that.
Wow.
But a dream is different. And what we realized in the beginning is if we can figure out what Trent's doing, figure out what results we want the dog to do to help him through the night terror, we can then role play that during the day, right? And we use 100% operant conditioning to train a dog, and that is a positive reinforcer for good behavior and a negative reinforcer for bad behavior. It's very similar to training a master hunting dog.
Yeah.
But in your case, or somebody training a hunting dog, the good positive reward for good behavior is the duck.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So Trent, having a dog help him through a nightmare, it's hard to give the dog a duck. So we say, well, we'll go to a treat reward, we'll go to a love reward, we'll go to a praise reward. And once we start matching that dog with the veteran, and they can start at that time giving that reward. A perfect example is we had a veteran one time that woke up in night terrors and really, really, really needed to know where they were when they woke up. So we said, all right, let's figure out what you're doing. The dog got on the bed, realized sleeping with the veteran that this was happening, jumped off, turned the light switch on, comes back to the bed, licks their face, wakes them up, orientates to the room, and now they know where they're at when they woke up out of the terror.
Can you train one to go get a cold beer while he's at it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. But you got to remember, most of these guys come to me like, I don't want to wake up. I'd rather just keep sleeping. So then it hit us that maybe part of this plan is to use the dog subliminally, I guess. I don't know how the best way to put it is while you're sleeping to have the dog do something that allows this individual to realize that potentially they're in a dream. And I know that sounds crazy, but I don't think there's any dream that Trent would be having that's related to being in Afghanistan or being in a traumatic situation that he had a warm, furry, loving dog next to him while that was happening. Does that make sense?
That does make perfect sense.
Okay, so Trent starts going into a nightmare in his sleep. Tracer recognizes it, snuggles in closer. Trent's hand goes to Tracer's head in his sleep, and you will see it on video where the veteran just totally relaxes back.
The minute he reaches, I'm just saying, the dog puts his nose up against his neck, the individual just instinctively puts his hand on the dog's head, and in that moment,
calmness.
Boom.
Calmness.
Wow.
Yes. And the great part is somebody like Trent coming, being able the next day to sit in that office and watch and see and feel that, oh my gosh, I slept right through that. I see where I was getting restless in my sleep and my hand went on Tracer's head and he snuggled in closer and I just melted back into sleep. And that gives them confidence.
Wow.
Right? That gives him the confidence to say, man, that's great. And that's just a little part of this.
And what is Tracer's reward?
At that point, it's nothing, okay? But in the training process, if Trent's doing that and he starts getting, rolling around on the bed and Tracer comes in, snuggles in, and Trent's like, good boy, pets him, Tracer will remember that day in, day out as it starts happening at night. And, Ramsey, part of this process at Retrieving Freedom to place a dog with a veteran is 100 hours of staff training hours that Trent has to go through with the dog before he can take him home.
How long? Okay, that brings up a good point. You have trained the dog for how long?
Start them at 8 weeks. They train all the way up to about 18 months without a veteran.
And when you say start them at 8 weeks, are we talking just primary socialization like you would do with any other
So we have
puppy
volunteers.
You pick up?
Yep,
Okay.
we have over 100 puppy raising volunteers.
And that's what you were saying, foster, earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, sir. Yep, they take the puppy home, but they come back to our facility once a month and come to puppy class so we can see how the puppy's doing, make sure that they're socializing well, being good citizens, not biting the kids, not growling. And we got that. Don't get me wrong, they're not all perfect. But
a lab puppy's going to tear up something. That's just what they do, but go ahead.
But we help those volunteers through every step of that process so that at 10 months, they bring the dog back to us. and we review it with them, and then the dog starts into training.
Then the dog, when you say the dog starts into training, at 10 months, does the dog do you begin training the dog to a period before Trent comes into
Absolutely.
the equation? Okay,
Absolutely.
And what are they doing at that point? What would be? You've just pulled out a chart that I should have looked at previously, but I say, walk me through this.
Yeah, so 8 weeks to 10 months is what we were just talking about, right? That's where the puppy raisers, our fosters, are working with the dogs. Mm-hmm. At 10 months, they come back to our facility, but they aren't necessarily then just trained by a retrieving freedom trainer. Our goal, clear back when I started this, I said, we have 2 years to train a dog, because the veteran doesn't take them home till they're 24 months old.
24 months old,
24
okay.
months old. But imagine having a dog from 8 weeks to 2 years. What else could we be doing with this dog? Who else could we be helping? I don't want to just put it into a facility, train it, and not that I don't want to just help Trent, but there's so many other people that could be helped with this dog while it's in training.
Such as
We're in 2 different prisons. We work directly with prisoners, inmates.
So between 10 months old and 18 months old.
Yep.
Now they're doing a dual service that might be prisons.
Yep.
And they're transferring some form of empathy and emotion and love and responsibility.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So we have a prison in Iowa City where they have to have 2 years of good conduct before they can get into our dog program. It was interesting because we've talked to the warden and everybody at the prison, and they're even like, we've got guys that are being good here just so they can get in your dog program, right? So they work really hard. Now they get to be with a dog, and they get to go into a special ward of the prison. They get to one-on-one sleep with the dog every night. They get their own little place. They get to take the dog outside. And we send a trainer to the prison once a week to work with these inmates. Mm-hmm. And like you said, Trent's run into 50 people here talking about, can I pet your dog? I remember one of the first times I was in the prison, and this guy, he'd been there for quite a while. He's probably 290 pounds. And he had 2 years of good behavior, and he's this big old guy, looked like a professional football player. And I'm imagining Richard Pryor's cellmate in that movie he did that time. Yeah, and you give him an 8-week-old puppy, right? And he's like, "What am I supposed to do with it?" And I'm like, "Well, we're gonna train it." And he starts messing around with the puppy. I said, "You got to talk to him like, in his terms." And it wasn't 2 minutes. He's down on the ground talking baby talk, and encouraging this little puppy to come over. And they've wrote letters to us, Ramsey, these prisoners, of the hope that we've provided. There's been guys that have gotten out. I've got one right here.
That, lady and gentlemen, is why every child needs a puppy. I know you don't want to fool with it. Every child needs a puppy. We'll thin out the prison population just by giving children puppies when they're young.
And you can, while I'm talking, you can read that. That's 2 prisoners that have wrote us little stories of what it's meant to them to have a dog in the prison.
He just showed me a piece of literature called Prison Impact with some testimonials, and I think what I'm going to end up doing is taking some pictures of some of this literature and putting it online just so people can see what we're talking about.
Yeah. So that's one little part. The other thing we did is we said, we do also help kids with autism, okay?
Right.
And we had to figure out, well, how else could these dogs be helping individuals while they're in training? So we're in 22 different elementary schools now, where we have elementary teachers take our dogs into the classroom 1 day a week to help the kids in the classroom understand just disabilities like post-traumatic stress, autism, but also compassion.
But some of those autistic children actually have service dogs of their own, don't they? Because I've got some friends that have an autistic brother who is diabetic, and that lab lays at his feet in the classroom.
Absolutely.
And we'll notify him somehow, or usually walk up and notify the teacher that he needs his insulin injection.
Yeah.
That just amazes me that dog will be just laying there minding his own business and just get up and go walk and tug the teacher's skirt because he smells that blood chemistry and says, hey, my owner needs a shot.
Right.
That's just
well, and we do place some with children with autism as their full, just like Trent's dog. Children with autism get dogs from us for their personal dogs.
Other than night terrors, what else do service dogs like Tracer do?
Okay, so if we're talking just about post-traumatic stress, there's a few key things we train for, but we also train for physical disabilities, picking objects off the floor.
Sure.
Like Trent has lower back problems along with PTSD.
It ain't gonna get easier with old age. I'm gonna tell you. I'm a little bit older than you.
So one of the things we taught Tracer was the brace. He stands on all fours, flexes his front shoulders and his rear hips, and Trent can put hand on his shoulder, hand on the hips, and he can use them to stand up.
Get up. Wow.
The big thing, though, that other than night terrors, I think that most everyone like yourself, Trent, asks for is this positioning of the dog. Remember when Trent was telling that story earlier about the lady that pushed him in the back?
Yeah.
Imagine going into a grocery store and going up to pay, going to the checkout center.
Yep.
Right? Well, your back is open, right? So we teach the dogs not to protect, but just to position. So Tracer can turn around and sit behind Trent. And when Trent's in a grocery store aisle, he's sitting behind him the whole time. Nobody can push a cart up close. Nobody can come back on the back side.
Because apparently part of that post-traumatic stress disorder that y'all experience is like a vulnerability on your blind side. And that dog will put himself to keep a distance between something going on in the back just so you are comfortable.
Yep. But then put it in the front when you come up to talk to Trent, right? Everybody that was in Afghanistan that I've talked to that's come back, sat in my office, was frustrated with people talking close in their face. And maybe you can explain that.
Don't go to China.
They don't have a sense of personal space.
Right, I get that.
So we teach the dog, same command, sit in the front. So if you're coming up to talk to Trent, he'll just say, Tracer, go to the front. Tracer will come around, sit in the front of him, and all of a sudden he's got a barrier between you and him, and he can sit there and talk to you, and you can't get in Trent's face.
Trent, what has changed now? It's kind of a dual question. What has changed since Tracer has become an integral part of your life? What has changed? How's it changed?
Where do I even start?
I mean, most people don't leave the house without their cell phone.
I don't leave the house without Tracer.
24/7.
24/7.
He's right. Like you were telling me. You were telling me yesterday. Y'all went to a club and there was some music going on, and some of the patrons were like, "Well, how's the dog going to do with a concert?"
Yeah.
You know.
He's been to a concert. He's been to a couple different concerts. Last night we were hanging out at the watering hole at the casino hotel, and everyone says, how's he going to do with the band playing? He's just going to lay down and take a nap. He's going to sit right on my foot or lay down on my foot, so I know that he's there, and he's going to fall asleep.
I have noticed in the time, and I can't see him right now because he's under the table, but I've noticed when you've come in the booth and sat down, he puts his head right on your foot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's his way of knowing exactly where you are. You're under his thumb and under his watch.
Yep.
At all times.
Yeah, and it's I believe Temple Grandin's got a thing about so a lot of people use weighted blankets and stuff like that, or a lot of autistic children use weighted blankets. It's kind of the same thing. It's kind of a deep pressure therapy where he's leaning into me, or he's laying on my feet, or sitting on my feet, and I know that he's there.
Even in a waking moment, he's providing that emotional comfort.
Yep.
And that was trained.
Some of it's intuition, but a lot of it's trained. Positioning is all trained. Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
And then he's gotten trained and so used to it that he knows that I'm more comfortable. And I'm not going to be as anxious if he's leaning into my leg, or if he's laying on my feet or sitting on my feet. He knows that I'm going to be okay.
You and your wife go to restaurants now. You can go to the grocery store. You can go to Walmart. You can go to concerts. You can go get around people. Go to SCI convention.
Went on my first airplane ride in 5 years.
Wow.
What haven't I accomplished? I do a lot of public speaking and representing Retrieving Freedom, and trying to, help others and pay it forward.
And that's become kind of your life purpose. That's what you do.
Absolutely.
Is help. And I've always said I believe the best way somebody can help themselves, and I think it helped me get through some of my stuff, was becoming busy helping others.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of emotional validity to service, to helping other people.
Absolutely. I feel like if I can help somebody else, because I'm not the only one going through my stuff. There's other people going through stuff too. And if I can share, what I've been through or what I'm going through, not only does it help me, but it might help somebody else, and it might save somebody's life, because I do not want to go to anybody's funeral.
No.
I hate losing friends. I hate losing brothers. And I don't want to see it anymore. And,
now, because he's a lab, I got to ask you, when I looked at your chart on the timeline between 8 weeks and 24, I did not see retriever fetch. I didn't see duck fetching, and I didn't see that on the list right there. But is that a part of every dog's training, or was that just a part of tracers, or how did that? Because Trent, at age 26 years old, had this great dog, his buddy, who obviously knew how to duck hunt, and that kind of pulled him into the sport of duck hunting.
So back again to my history, yes, that's where I grew up, training dogs for the field, right? So each dog does go through the trained retrieve. Not necessarily for ducks. They might have to pick up a leash, they might have to pick up a crutch, they might have to pick up a cane, but it's still the same process. They go through a trained retrieve. I want you to go over and pick that up. I want you to bring it to me. We have another individual that works for us. It was one of the first veterans that got a dog through our program. Ended up going to dog training school. He's a full-time employee and a full-time dog trainer now at Retrieving Freedom. His name's Chad Johnson. And Chad takes a ton of his time outside of work hours to still work with guys like Trent in the field. And now Trent's doing that. Trent went to work for an individual that used to be my assistant in the field trial training. And Trent went to Texas with him, went to Texas with one of our board members and helped him. So guys now call Trent and say, Trent, I know I got this dog from Retrieving Freedom. He's going to be my duck dog. And Trent's like, all right, let's start meeting together and training after work. Or
you were showing me some pictures the other day, Trent. You had gone on a really nice duck hunt that you put together, and you're learning how to duck hunt now. I mean, you're 4 years into it, but I know that it's a lifelong process of learning to become a better duck hunter. But you had taken some veterans that had never duck hunted.
Yeah, so I really tried to. I kind of organized a fundraiser this year, and part of that fundraiser, I decided that I was going to take out 22 new veterans duck hunting this year for the 22 veterans a day that commit suicide.
Amen. And they, how do I love seeing new people get into hunting. How do they respond?
They absolutely love it.
What do they think of Tracer going and fishing those ducks?
They love Tracer working too. It gives me an opportunity to share about Retrieving Freedom and share what I've been through, but learn about what they're going through, and if they're struggling, or if they're having a bad day, or have had a bad week, a month, a year, they can talk to me and there's this avenue of getting help. You could do this, and building that camaraderie in the duck blind, gives them another outlet.
And it goes beyond the duck blind, doesn't it? Because you may meet a vet from another state or another area that responds to your offering to duck hunt, and now y'all become friends. And that's the beautiful thing about. I got friends all over the world from duck hunting, but you've got this built-in thing with veterans that may be going through the same thing you're going through.
Yeah.
That's it, and it's all about duck hunting.
It is about duck hunting.
Who'd have thunk it?
I shot my first duck. I worked very hard, 9 months-ish. From when I got Tracer, I started training him. Scott asked me, I remember him asking me, what do you think about, training Tracer to hunt? I said, well, I've never had a duck. I've never trained a dog before. I've never hunted with a dog before.
That was probably therapy in and of itself.
Oh, absolutely.
I know he loved it, the whole bonding thing.
Bonding with him and learning together and stuff, and I had the perfect dog to do it with. I mean, he's been so forgiving and accepting and learning, but I worked really hard training him up to go fetch up a duck, and I finally went out duck hunting. Me and Chad went out opening teal season, and we wound up shooting our limited teal, and I shot my first teal. I shot the first one of the day. And Tracer, I winged it. I didn't hit him all that great, and he kept swimming around, and Tracer just got out there and got after him and swam around, and I bet you me and Chad were just laughing and smiling and cheering Tracer on for 10 or 15 minutes while he was chasing that duck, and that teal kept diving on him. And, that was it. I mean, that was a game changer for me, watching that and experiencing that with Tracer. And that's where it started taking off from there.
I've always said, always thought, and my wife has elbowed me a few times for making this connection. But I've always said kids spell love T-I-M-E. And as raising children on my own, I always wished I had, I used to see these WWJD, What Would Jesus Do bracelets. Well, raising kids, they don't come with a book or instruction manual. I've always wondered, what would Andy do? What would Andy Griffith do in this situation, if Opie did something like this? But I did realize that like example, when I was raising children, I always felt like they would live up as best they could to the expectations placed on them. And I mean in a very gentle, positive way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Children live up to their expectations. Retrievers live up to their expectations. Whether they're duck fetching, whether they're pets, whether children, whether they're baseball on the baseball field or at home. I believe most good people and dogs. So I believe children spell love T-I-M-E, but I believe dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Retrievers like Trace, retrievers like mine, they eat up that relationship being a part of your life. And it's so rewarding, as we're talking about, for humanity to have that relationship with such a loyal animal.
Oh, absolutely.
Tell me this, Scott, because I see the crowd starting to pour in and starting to get a little lousy, and I don't want to leave this podcast without talking about Retrieving Freedom, y'all's nonprofit program organization. I know having paid dog trainers, having bought or looked at, started and finished dogs, that a duck dog is liable to be $5 or $10,000 into it. I mean, out the gate. What are we talking about? A dog like this, 2 years old, that will do this? I mean, what is the cost of what would a dog like Trace cost a veteran?
So the first answer is the dog costs the veteran nothing.
I know they cost the veteran nothing, but
yeah.
what do they cost for a veteran to have one?
So for us to take a dog through, every dog doesn't make it, right?
Sure.
So right now, if we step back to about the time Trent was in the office, we had 15, 18 dogs in training.
Wow.
Fast forward to today, we have 100 dogs in training. We built another location, and we still can't supply the demand.
No, there's way more veterans than people, right? There's way more veterans than dogs available.
That's right.
Not every dog is going to make a capable service animal.
That's right.
And so
if you look at it on your $5,000 to $10,000 figure, every dog that we have in training will typically have somewhere in that $10,000 a year into a dog.
Per year.
Yep. And if a dog doesn't make it, I almost have to take the cost of that dog and apply it to a dog that does make it if you want that true number.
Right.
So you're in that 20 to 30 by the time you get done after 24 months of training.
And as the father of a serviceman, I know what our armed force servicemen make. And it ain't enough to buy a $30,000 dog.
No, and we would never, ever, ever expect them to have to pay for a dog. We do a lot of fundraising.
So I'm sure, and I'm tongue-in-cheek being facetious here, I'm sure our Veterans Administration is all behind this and funding this for all these veterans, right?
Well, let me tell you, on the good note of that, is the VA did run a study on the benefits of service dogs. We're one of the accredited organizations in the country.
Fantastic.
And they do now cover the vet costs and some of the costs once they get their dog. They've not yet been able to cover the costs of training the dog. So, like, for example, if Tracer has an injury, the VA will cover Tracer to get tears a cruciate.
Fantastic.
Yes.
I'm pleased.
Now, they have to get the dog through an accredited organization like Retrieving Freedom, and they have to get the paperwork signed up.
Yep.
But there's little steps that's going in the right direction. The other thing that has come on board the last couple of years is the Department of Defense. has given us some grants to provide service members with dogs.
Good.
So
are y'all able to leverage that any kind of way to get more money? You know, if the Department of Defense gives you $100,000, is there any organizations out there that will match grant? So you got $200,000?
No, not yet. But there is private corporations, individuals that do like to see the DoD getting involved, do like to see the VA applying funds towards injuries, and then come on board as donors and say, well, we'll help you make up the difference. So that's how we're doing it. The other thing I'll tell you is that 20-30% of our total revenue comes from donations under $1,000. So if somebody says, man, I really can't help. Well, yes, you can. $100 is $100. And we provide a lot of dogs with a huge following of people that support the benefits. And I can't leave this without saying something that Trent was talking about earlier, and you brought it up with helping others. But one of the biggest smiles I ever saw on Trent's face was the day he came in and found out one of the guys that he had been working with, talking about Tracer with, had turned in an application.
Fantastic.
And there was almost tears from Trent's eyes because the whole circle came back around, from the day he sat in my office that day to getting Tracer, to becoming a duck hunting dog, to going to the field, to walking back in the office and saying, oh my God, John Doe put in an application and he's getting a dog?
Fantastic. How'd it make
I
you
did
feel?
something.
Oh, it made me feel great.
Yeah.
You know, knowing that I could help somebody else, that just, there's no words for it.
Fantastic. So now, before, what is your website name? What is your Instagram account handle? How can listeners plug into Retrieving Freedom?
Everything is Retrieving Freedom. RetrievingFreedom.org, Retrieving Freedom on Facebook, Retrieving Freedom on Twitter. I don't know the exact Twitter. You might be able to.
I don't know the Twitter, but it's RFI Service Dogs on Instagram, I think.
Y'all Google Retrieving Freedom, and all that social media outlet will come up.
Yes.
And I'll have a link to them in our Instagram stories. By the time this thing is airing, there'll be a part of part of Ramsey Russell Get Ducks Instagram account. We'll be plugging them too. Y'all check this out. You know, you guys that have listened to this story that want to know what can I do to support this program, get on their webpage and make a contribution if you feel so inclined. We all know somebody that has served, and we all, every one of us, live under the blanket of freedom that our servicemen like Trent and others have provided. And it's not an easy road to hoe for them. And this conversation may have sounded easy coming over the mic, but it was anything but easy and comfortable to talk about. And anyway, guys, Ramsey Russell Get Ducks. It's duck season somewhere. Check us out on Instagram. Be darn sure to go check out retrievingfreedom.org. Thank y'all for listening.
Duck Season Somewhere is produced by Ben Page. Original soundtrack by our friend Cody Huggins.